Hi, this is Shoshanah Shear of BeAHappyMom.com, and in today's video I'd like to follow up on the series about finding work as an occupational therapist. The topic of this little video will be finding work as an occupational therapist in South Africa. Things have changed a little bit since I was there, since the last time I was working in South Africa, but I'll give you a couple of pieces of information if you're interested in finding work as an occupational therapist, whether you're qualified in South Africa or whether you decide that you want to travel and work there for a certain amount of time. So the first thing is that you have to have a degree that's recognized, an occupational therapy degree. There are a number of universities in South Africa that offer this degree in Cape Town, Stellenbosch, Wits University, which is located in Johannesburg. There's one in Durban. I think there's one in the Orange Free State, probably in Bloemfontein. Those are the ones that I know of. You can find out from the Occupational Therapy Association in South Africa if you're interested in studying there. So the first step is to obtain your degree. Once you've obtained that, you need to get a license or to register with the HPCSA, which is the Health Professionals Council of South Africa. It used to be called the South African Medical and Dental Council. It changed names a number of years ago. Some of the places that you'll apply to work will require that you have your own malpractice insurance. Some of the places of work will have that built in within the facility. It depends on what kind of a place you're going to be working in. And the next thing I've mentioned already, the Occupational Therapy Association of South Africa, which is known as OTASA, O-T-A-S-A, OTASA. And I would highly recommend joining this association. I was a member of the association even when I was a student, and it's a very active organization. They have a lot going on. They have a journal that comes out. They have regular meetings. When I was working in private practice, they had even a private practitioners group. If you're wishing to work privately, at the time that I worked there, there was a separate organization that one needed to register with in order to work privately. It would be important to find that out, and you could do that either with the Health Professionals Association of South Africa or with the association, the OT Association of South Africa. Both of them would be able to give you the relevant information. So once you have all of those necessary documentation in place, the method of finding work would be, there'd be a few ways to look for potential jobs. The first obviously is to contact the universities, and they quite often will hear about jobs coming up available. Some of the universities have a clinical department. The majority of them, I think, have a clinical department connected to them. University of Cape Town, for example, is connected with Groote Schuur Hospital, and they have both a physical side and a psychiatric hospital. At the time that I was working there was called Valkenburg. There was potential for some change to take place. I'm not sure what's happened. In the years that I've been out of South Africa, that is, I'm not sure what's happened. The main children's hospital is the Red Cross Children's Hospital in Cape Town. In Johannesburg, through Wits University, you'd be able to find out a lot of information also. Obviously, the Occupational Therapy Association of South Africa can give you information of jobs also. Now, jobs do come up in the classified section of the newspapers or the local community bulletins. Sometimes we'll have a posting. Majority of the time it would come into newspapers such as the Cape Times, the Argus, the Sunday Times. I forget what all the newspapers are that are elsewhere in South Africa. It's a while since I've been reading them. So in the classified section, you'll be finding listings of jobs as well. And something that I used to really, really enjoy with all of the job listings was the fact that a certain amount of information of one's job description, the level that you would be working at, whether it's a basic grade therapist, senior therapist, and so on, the level you're working at, some of the job description, and the salary all get listed in in the advertisement, which for me is wonderful, because if you're considering that you're needing to budget and you know that your monthly expenses reach X amount and you're looking for a job that's going to be in a certain salary bracket, you'd know whether the job that you were applying for would be giving you that the opportunity to reach your monetary goals. So that for me is amazing. It's something that doesn't happen here in Israel. We'll get into that in a different video. Something else that's really nice also is it will include important details such as how many hours you'd be working, certain things, certain job description, as I say, whether it's going to be, if you're working in physical rehab, whether you're working with adults, whether you're working with children, certain other details will come into the job description. And that for me is wonderful, because you know exactly upfront what you're interviewing for. Another place that you can be searching for jobs if you're looking to work in South Africa is, if you do a Google search, you'll find a number of listing of companies come up. Websites were not available when I was working in South Africa. When I got my first job, it was before the internet. I've been a therapist for quite a while. So yes, if you have a look on a Google search, or probably you'd find certain things on LinkedIn also, and you have a look for occupational therapy jobs in South Africa, you're going to find certain information coming up, and that will tell you also whether it's going to be a locum position, whether it's full-time, whether it's part-time, how many hours. All of that information is up there for you, and from there the next step would obviously be to contact them, to send in your CV, to apply for an interview, and to go and meet with whoever it is that you'd be, if you're interviewing for a school or a hospital or a different facility. You'd then set up an interview and go and meet with them. Those people that I worked with, the various departments I worked with in South Africa, were all amazing therapists and very lovely to meet with. And I would very much recommend having an interview. I was fortunate, as I said in my previous video, that I was invited to work at the first job that I had, and I stayed there for over 4 years. Not every therapist has that situation come up, and obviously the longer that you're working and you're starting to get into wanting to upgrade, whether you're wanting to now become a more senior therapist, a control therapist, a head of department, or you're looking into going into lecturing and other roles, then obviously you're going to be looking for and searching in order to progress in your career. There obviously is room for progress in one's career within certain departments as well. For example, the hospital I worked at in South Africa had much room for progress and development, whether you'd become a supervisor, whether you'd become as I say, a control therapist, whether you'd be progress from being a basic grade to a senior therapist. All of these are opportunities for growth and development. Certain of the facilities that I know of in South Africa, so I'm going back to when I was working there, and you'd have to check out the extent to which it still happens today. But most definitely at Grooterskie Hospital, when I was working there, we had a lot of in-service training. So in addition to one's continuing education, you would also be constantly having meetings, seminars, in-service training, where we'd be discussing whether it would be journal articles or we'd be discussing learning new treatment techniques. When I was working in the hands department, we'd be learning more about the various different splinting materials or different making up of a new type of splint. There are obviously a range of different types of splints, and one needs to keep up to date constantly with the advances in the assessments, the evaluations, when to evaluate, when to use this type of evaluation, and so on. And all of that, we'd be constantly growing on a weekly basis. We'd be having meetings and seminars and all sorts of things taking place. And for me, the growth and the potential of growth and development in a facility such as a teaching hospital is absolutely tremendous. So those are some of the benefits of working in such a facility. There are a number of other types of places that you can obviously work aside from hospitals and schools. There's the opportunity to work privately. There's the opportunity to work in insurance companies. Some therapists are doing medical legal work in South Africa. There's also the opportunity to work in work rehabilitation. There's a there was, when I was there in South Africa, there was a work rehabilitation unit connected with Groote Hospital, and there was also a work rehabilitation unit connected with the Association of Physically Disabled. I'm a little bit out of touch with those kinds of details right now because I'm no longer working there and not as connected with what's happening there. Other kinds of places are organizations such as the Organization for the Blind or for the Deaf, where there also would be opportunities for occupational therapists to be working. For example, LOFOB, which is for the visually impaired. The civilian blind also, as far as I know, had an occupational therapist connected with them, both in the work rehabilitation and also the School for the Blind has an occupational therapist connected with them. So there's lots of scope and opportunity and progress and development happening. The level of education has changed and the type of training has changed since I was in South Africa. I know that certain aspects that were in our course when I was studying at UCT has altered to what it is in today's time. All of those details I would recommend that you find out from either one of the universities or the Occupational Therapy Association of South Africa. So that's a little bit of the information and some tips and some experience that I have from working in South Africa, both in terms of the degree, what's required for you in terms of obtaining your documentation, the licensing, connecting with the Occupational Therapy Association. I would recommend staying connected with the universities. There's always growth, development, lots happening through those departments and of course through the journal. And get involved. It's a vibrant and an active community, really, I suppose, a body of occupational therapists in South Africa. And the process for finding work, when I was first working and from my little bit of research looking online, it seems to be that it's possible for finding works. There was a period of time when there was changes, during certain changes taking place, political changes taking place in South Africa, where there was a certain amount of affirmative action that did have some difficulty in job search for certain people. I definitely was affected when I went back from America and I went back to South Africa. For a certain amount of time there was some difficulty from the political point of view, and I then became quite proactive in looking into writing up a number of different proposals and doing some work in expanding the roles of occupational therapists. I looked into potentially working with the Sports Science Institute as an example. I wrote up 20 proposals and looked into ways in which we could be developing jobs within various areas within that was all within Cape Town. And so if you're dynamic and you're looking to grow and develop, there's lots of potential available, and I would say jump into it. Have a look at what's available online, be in touch with these organizations that I've mentioned, and good luck with your job search. So that's Shoshanah Shear from beahappymom.com, and I hope that you've benefited from this video. If you have any questions, do be in touch. Ciao for now.